This group presentation explores the development of the question, are the community inclined to take responsibility for the preservation of the Seven Saints murals? The Learning Through Place module has enabled us to engage in the rabbit hole approach to research. This concept involves looking at details and data sources and using these to develop lines of inquiry, generating a chain of research questions. Across the themes, our group's interest peaked in industrial work, particularly at week 5 when looking at the Bristol bus boycott. The module's focus on place and place identity influenced this, as the bus boycott can be seen as significant in shaping Bristol's identity even today, with the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest making reference to the Bristol bus boycott and its influence in the civil rights movement. After watching TV reports and reading contemporary newspaper articles during the weekly workshop, we decided to burrow further into this rabbit hole, looking at a key figure involved, Roy Hackett.
During the second part of industrial work, we watched a 25-minute video on the Bristol bus boycott. The video was a Sky News feature broadcasted in 2020 and included an interview with Roy Hackett. We then looked at newspaper articles reporting on the Bristol bus boycott from 1963. From these sources, we learned that Roy Hackett had led a boycott after a bus company refused to let black people drive buses. Hackett saw a man crying outside the omnibus company as they refused him a job interview because he was black. Hackett spoke to the manager and got the man an interview. However, this was only one manager, and he wanted to protest against the whole company. Alongside 4 other men, Hackett began a boycott with 3,000 people joining them. The boycott had their first press conference on the 29th of April 1963, which gained national attention. We found these men were Owen Henry, Audley Evans, Prince Brown and Clifford Drummond. They were all part of the Commonwealth Coordinated Committee. Today it is called the Bristol West Indian Parents and Friends Association. The committee challenged Bristol's council to act on racial inequality in housing and employment, as well as their most important campaign, the Bristol bus boycott. The boycott was successful and Omnibus lifted the ban on the 28th of August 1963. The boycott's success led us to think about how the boycott would be commemorated today. To honour these people involved in the boycott, Michelle Curtis painted the 7 Saints of St Paul's in a borough in Bristol on the side of houses. The 7 murals included Roy Hackett, Audley Evans, Clifford Drummond and Owen Henry. This led us to the rabbit hole of who were the 7 Saints of St Paul's.
Following on from the Bristol bus boycott and the Commonwealth Coordinated Committee, we decided to follow the rabbit hole deeper to look at the life of Roy Hackett and who he really was. Roy was born in 1928 in Islington, Jamaica, where he lived until he arrived in the UK in 1952 in Liverpool as part of the Windrush generation, in search of economic opportunity. Later, he moved further around the country, from Wolverhampton to London, then eventually he moved to Bristol by late 1956. In Bristol, he worked in construction and moved in between jobs. He also discovered the outright racism and discrimination within the housing and job markets when he was forced to spend nights on the street and share rooms with up to 3 other men just to have a place to stay. This fueled his fire to take action against the discrimination in Bristol. Roy was key in founding the Commonwealth Coordinated Committee, which still runs to this day as the West Indian Parents and Friends Association. In 1963, he was key in the organisation and execution of the bus boycott, which gained his fame and activist status. After the boycott, he continued to play an active role in the community in organising the St Paul's Festival and Carnival, which turned into St Paul's Carnival. He also worked behind the scenes whenever requested by new activists. During his long life in Bristol, he also worked closely with other activists like Owen Henry within the CCC, where he was the public relations officer. When researching both Hackett and Henry, we discovered the existence of their murals in St Paul's, where they have both been commemorated on the side of buildings in St Paul's area, with the other 7 saints of Bristol. Despite his passing in 2022, the community worked hard to appreciate his pivotal role in the history of Bristol, with talks to replace the Colston statue with a tribute to him, and to remake and rebuild the fallen down tribute of his mural in St Paul's.
Our rabbit hole deepened its connections when we set foot in Bristol. We focused on the significance of the murals at St. Paul's and their importance in honouring the legacies brought about by figures who broke down racial barriers and worked for full integration. The murals displayed on the sides of houses, which include Carmen Beckford and Owen Henry, represent the way in which the lives of the two pioneers are present in the current anatomy of the city. On our field trip, we made a historical journey through time and space, as the community holds an unbroken reminder of the place's rooted identity in slavery. Beckford was instrumental in setting up the first carnival and later became Bristol City Council's first community development officer, the first ever black person to be employed in such a high-collar profession, working to improve social integration and harmony in the city. Bristol Carnival is an event that is at the heart of the city and owned by the community themselves, creating a place for black culture to thrive. Many of the migrants who settled in St. Paul's between 1948 and 1971 were part of the Windrush generation, a key moment in history signified by yet another mural in St. Paul's. The carnival's undeniable importance was highlighted on our group's visit to the Museum M Shed in Bristol, where a video of the carnival from the 2000s was displayed in order to show the way in which it penetrates city walls and shatters the divisions made up of skin colour and ethnicity through food, music and dance. Roy Hackett's mural and its effect on the community is exemplar of another black activist in his movement as Bristol bus boycott organiser, a fundamental role in Bristol's black history. However, it has now collapsed.
The infamous Roy Hackett mural on Byron Street in St. Paul's partially fell in August of 2021. The Avon Fire and Rescue sadly had to remove the majority of the artwork for safety reasons. Tenant Nahid Arama said she was saddened to see it on the floor when she came home, stating that the mural is really important to me and the community, and it makes me really happy to see it every day, but now it is gone. Also overlaying that she needs it back, we all need it back. Artist of the piece, Michelle Curtis, set up a crowdfunding site highlighting that all her murals were developed to inspire and educate everybody about Bristol's rich and diverse history. Unfortunately, this was now incomplete without Mr. Hackett's mural. However, she only managed to raise £2,000 out of the £10,000 required, and no more donations have been made for over a year. Bristol City Council had promised to fund the wall repairs, but nothing much else has been done to restore the piece. The most recent update we could find was a Twitter user asking to replace the mural, following a thread from the Black Southwest Network, asking Bristolians what they want from public spaces in order to memorialise the future. This shows that perhaps the mural does not have the desired significance it should for the community in St. Paul's, as nothing has been urgently done to restore it within the last 2 years. Or perhaps it should fall more on Bristol City Council to maintain the things that keep Bristol's diverse heritage alive.
To summarise our rabbit hole journey that took us to our final research question, I will talk you through this slide. From our reading and study of the concept of place and place identity, we decided to delve deeper into how industrial work has shaped Bristol's sense of place. After the Week 5 workshop, our group became interested in the Bristol bus boycotts. We burrowed into this by looking at the key figure, Roy Hackett. On our field trip, this led us to visiting the Seven Saint Memorials, where we discovered that Roy's had fallen. Here, our group began to question the community's response to this, propelling us to our final research question. Are the community inclined to take responsibility for the preservation of the Seven Saints murals? Thank you for listening to our presentation.